this video, I'm gonna walk through how to calculate your calorie baseline, the perfect amount of surplus to gain weight without adding too much fat, and what your macro split should be as a skinny guy in the same splits I use to go from 150 pounds skinny to 200 pounds shredded. Put simply, you need to be eating more calories than you burn in a day, and ideally a large part of that surplus goes towards muscle development. These numbers is affected.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
By a few factors which will be different for everyone, but these things include your basal metabolic rate, your physical activity levels, and your thermic energy of the food you eat. However, there is a general calculation to find what is known as your total daily energy expenditure, or your calorie baseline. So let's hop onto my computer and run you through the calculator I found to be most accurate. This has been, like I mentioned, the most accurate one that I found. Reason being is some of them really undercalculate how much your baseline is. So in this baseline basically says, like, if you're not eating this amount of calories a day, you're actually going to be losing weight. And I've just found a few of the other ones out there not to be quite accurate when first starting, whether it be for myself or someone that I'm helping out figure out theirs. Pretty straightforward. You just want to pop in your age, pop in your weight. Right now I'm 197, and then your height. So these so far are straightforward. The next two things is, again, you want to look at, okay, how much is my activity level? This is going to affect the amount of calories that you will be burning in a day or in a given week per se. So I exercise about 3 to 4 times a week with some walks in between. And then for right now, I'm just going to put 13%. I'd probably argue that I'm at around 12%, but you always want to err on the side of caution, especially when you're trying to gain, not lose. Pretty simple. All you need to get out of this is this number right here. So how many calories are you burning in a given day based off of those numbers? I wouldn't go ahead and take all of these other numbers into account. Reason being is that a lot of these are off. If I were to look at my BMI score exclusively, it basically says that I am overweight, which that is just not true. And then this says my ideal weight is 164. So don't look at these numbers. All you're looking for is this right here. The only other thing that I would say is good to look at is your maximum muscular potential. This is a good benchmark per se to say, like, hey, what could I get to? Because for me, this is kind of what I am aiming for, 195 at 8% body fat, but use these as what, like I mentioned, a baseline. Okay, so with that, we have our number. Do this, calculate it on your own, and then let's hop back into the video, and I'm going to walk through the macros in the surplus. Okay, now that you have your maintenance or your baseline for how much you're going to burn, it's time to actually add a surplus before deciding what the macros are going to be that go into those calories. Now, as a rule of thumb, the more of a surplus you're in, the faster you're going to gain weight, but the more likely you will actually store body fat. Let's look at a few scenarios for weight gain. If you're at 5% surplus, you're going to gain about 0.5 pounds per week. 10% surplus is going to be about 1 pound per week, and then 15% surplus will probably be about 1.5 to maybe 2% per week of gained weight. If we want to go with a lean bulk, we want to be aiming for no more than 10% above your maintenance calories to be safe. So working off my example, my maintenance number is 3,176. So I'd take 317 calories extra to put me in a 10% surplus, totaling 3,493. Now that we have that calorie range for our surplus, we now need to take that macro ratio between fats, proteins, and carbs and figure out what goes into what. Fats and proteins are essentials to the body, whereas carbs aren't. So for this reason, what we do is we first start with protein, and then we take fat, and then whatever's left over for the calories, we make that up in carbs. Okay, so here's a breakdown of each and what they mean. So with protein, it's used for muscle maintenance and growth. We've all heard of protein, build muscle, blah, blah, blah. So for skinny guys, what we want to be doing is hitting a minimum of 1 gram of protein per body weight. As you begin to build muscle, you'll want to consider increasing to 1.2 pounds or 1.2 grams of protein per pound. This is due to the amount of muscle that's needed to maintain over time, in addition to continuing to grow. So for my example, my weight is 197, okay? So we're gonna take 197 times that by 1.2, which is gonna give us 236. With protein, each gram equals 4 calories. So then we will take 236 and times it by 4, and we're gonna get the total calories for protein that we need. In this case, it is 944. Next up is fats. Fat is used for energy, nutrient absorption, and hormone functions, okay? Contrary to belief, fats aren't the thing that makes us fat. It's calories do, right? Calories in, calories out. We know that now. I've always leaned towards the higher side for fats, as I'd rather get my calories from fats and proteins over carbs, okay? So for that reason, I aim for at least 40% of my calories from fats. Now, to calculate the total grams we need, you'll work backwards from calories, okay? Contrary to what we did with protein. My daily calorie goal is 3,493. We'll use a total fat percentage of 40%. We will take 40% of 3,493, which is 1,397. Okay, then we'll divide the total calories by 9 to get the total grams needed each day. In this case, we would get 155 grams. Okay, lastly is carbs. Now, carbs is pretty much exclusively used for energy in this case, and it is an advantage for hard gainers because we can be a little bit more flexible with the amount of carbs we eat. But like I said, I would rather lean on fats and proteins. However, if you feel like you want to pack more carbs in instead of fats and proteins, be my guest. Now, once you have your proteins and fats, you will add the remaining calories needed through carbs. I have 3,493 calories to hit in a day. So we've got our protein intake of 944. We've got our fat intake of 1,397. This leaves us with 1,151 calories for carbs. Now, carbs, like protein, is also calculated at 4 calories per gram, which if we did the math, that leaves us with 288 carbs that we need to implement into our breakdown. Now, the one important thing about carbs is fiber, or fiber is carbs, whatever way that kind of works. Without going into too much detail about the benefits of fiber, the single most important thing that we need to know is when we're eating this much food and we're in a surplus for our body, fiber is really going to aid in regular healthy bowel movements, which is really important. So a good rule of thumb that I actually pulled from the Institute of Medicine, and I figure that I personally recommend, is to consume 14 grams of fiber for every 1,000 calories eaten. So to finish your macro breakdown inside of the carbs, okay, for me it's 288. We will be looking at around 45 to 50 grams of carbs mixed in there, okay? So if you want to, if you're experiencing any irregularities within your bowel movements, it's probably best to actually up the amount of fiber that you're going to be taking. And you can be doing it with things like flax seeds, for example, or just give it a Google and you'll be able to find lots of options that are high in fiber. Now, the next question you need to answer is, what do you actually fill these macros with, okay? You know the splits, you know how much you need of each, but this is what becomes the tougher part, because this is where the theory stops and the practice starts, right? And if you can't consistently be hitting your calories due to poor nutrition planning and mindset, you'll never gain. That's simple as that. So for a video on the easiest way to consistently hit your calories and overcome the typical struggles of meal prep, maybe you faced them, maybe you haven't yet, I've got a great video and contrary video you should check out. I'll link it below. Till next time, guys, stay moving, stay learning, stay well. And if you enjoyed this, give it a like, give it a subscribe, and I'll be talking to you soon.